You did everything right. You open the account, you set up the automatic transfer. Every month, a little more disappears from your checking and reappears somewhere that feels safer, somewhere it's supposed to grow. And it does grow, slowly, quietly. The number gets bigger, but something feels off. Not wrong exactly, just off. Like a clock that keeps perfect time but is set to the wrong time zone. Everything is functioning, nothing is working. This video is about that feeling, and more importantly, it's about why that feeling is mathematically correct. Let's start with a number, 4.5%. That's roughly what a high-yield savings account was paying in 2024. Banks were practically advertising it like a miracle. Your money working for you. Earn more, do less. Some of the marketing was genuinely exciting if you'd spent the previous decade watching savings accounts pay 0.01%, which is not a typo. So savers celebrated, and honestly, for a moment, it made sense to. But here's the thing nobody put in the advertisement. Inflation in 2024 was running around 3.4%, which means your 4.5% return after inflation eats its share left you with a real gain of roughly 1.1% before taxes. If you're in a typical tax bracket and your interest income gets taxed, you're looking at something closer to 0.7% in real purchasing power gained. Not 4.5, not even close, 0.7%. That's the actual raise your money got, and you were supposed to feel good about it. Now, none of this is a conspiracy. No one is lying to you in the technical sense. The 4.5% is real. The bank is paying it. The math checks out on the statement. The problem isn't the number. The problem is the frame around the number. We have been trained, culturally and financially, to think about savings in nominal terms. That means the raw number, the face value. If it goes up, we feel richer. If it goes down, we feel poorer. Simple. But the economy doesn't work in nominal terms. It works in real terms, which means what actually matters is not how many dollars you have, but what those dollars can buy. And those are two very different questions. Here's a simple way to see it. In 2004, the average price of a new car in the United States was around $22,000. In 2024, that same average car cost around $48,000. If you had $22,000 in a savings account in 2004 and earned a modest 2% annually for 20 years, you'd have roughly $32,000, enough to feel like you'd saved responsibly. You still couldn't afford the car. You didn't lose money, your statement proves it. You just quietly, gradually, invisibly fell behind. And that's the part that never makes the advertisement. So how did we get here? How did an entire generation of savers end up in a system that technically rewards them while functionally keeping them in place? It starts in the 1980s. Before then, saving money was a different cultural act. Interest rates were high. In 1981, the Federal Reserve pushed the federal funds rate to nearly 20% to kill a brutal bout of inflation. That meant savings accounts were paying real, meaningful returns. People could park money in a bank and actually outpace inflation with room to spare. Saving felt like a strategy. Then inflation was tamed and rates came down, slowly at first, then faster. By the 2010s, in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed had pushed rates to essentially zero and kept them there for years. During that entire stretch, a savings account was not a wealth-building tool. It was a holding pen, a place to keep money that was slowly losing value while you figured out what to do with it. The financial industry responded to this in a very predictable way. If savings accounts couldn't offer real returns, they would offer something else. Convenience, safety, a feeling of responsibility. They wrapped the product in language that sounded like growth without actually delivering it. And for most people, it worked, because the alternative felt complicated, risky, like something you needed a finance degree to understand. Here's where the story gets a little ironic. The people who did understand the alternative, who moved their money into index funds or real estate or other assets, didn't necessarily know more about finance. Most of them just knew one uncomfortable truth that the savings account ads never mentioned. Money sitting still is money moving backward. That's not a metaphor, it's arithmetic. If inflation runs at 3% annually, a dollar today becomes worth about 74 cents in 10 years in real purchasing power. You don't feel that happening, it's not dramatic, there's no alarm. The number on your statement still goes up, but the ground underneath it is quietly sinking. This is the hidden tax on caution. It doesn't show up as a line item. No one sends you a bill. It just slowly, silently erodes the real value of money that isn't working hard enough to keep up. And the people who figured this out, or more accurately, the people whose parents or advisors told them early enough, directed their money into assets that at least had a fighting chance of keeping pace. The S&P 500 has returned roughly 10% annually on average over the past century. Even after inflation, that's around 7% in real terms. The gap between 0.7% and 7% compounded over 30 years is not a rounding error, it is a retirement. But let's slow down here because this is where a lot of finance content goes wrong. The answer isn't simply stop saving and start investing. That framing ignores the reason most people have savings accounts for the first place. Emergency funds are real. Financial cushion is real. The psychological value of knowing you can handle a broken transmission or a medical bill without going into debt is real, and it has real financial value that doesn't show up in a spreadsheet. The problem isn't the existence of savings. The problem is the scale of savings and the understanding of what savings accounts are actually for. A savings account is not an investment. It was never designed to build wealth. It's a short-term buffer, a shock absorber. Financially, the correct use of a savings account is to hold 3 to 6 months of living expenses in accessible, liquid form and then stop putting money there.